Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I am here to recommend some trans books by trans authors. So it is nearing the end of Pride, and something that is very important to me on this channel is including as many identities as possible when I'm talking about books during the month of Pride. A lot of the time, all that gets focused on this time of the year is the L and the G of the LGBTQIA+ community, and that is so frustrating for so many reasons. So to make it easy, today I am here to recommend some Ownvoices books about trans-spectrum protagonists so that you have a list of books to hopefully check out that I think a lot of you are going to enjoy. Now, because I am a cisgender lesbian, I am only recommending Ownvoices books because it is not my place as a cisgender person to recommend books about trans folks by other cisgender people. If you want more info about the importance of Ownvoices reviews and Ownvoices stories, I'm going to include some links in the description below for you to check out. Also, please check out the description for a few other links, including some links to a few fantastic trans-spectrum booktubers and book bloggers. There are a ton of absolutely incredible people linked down there, and if at all possible, you should be consuming as diverse a possible group of people in what you are reading and watching. Also, before we get started, if you are a trans-spectrum person who loves books, we need your voice on platforms like BookTube and in book blogs. This video is made possible by Skillshare, an online learning community that is focused on education of so many different types for a low cost. If you want to start a BookTube channel and you don't know how, there are a ton of really great classes on Skillshare about starting an online platform, especially using tools that you probably have laying around your house. I started my channel by only filming on my phone. I didn't have a microphone, I didn't have a professional camera, and if you're unsure about how all of that works, there are a ton of great classes for you on Skillshare. Since I have been creating content for this channel for over 4 years, I have recently been taking some classes, learning some new skills for Premiere Pro so that I can create the best content possible. Skillshare Premium gives you unlimited access to all of these classes, and it is an incredibly affordable platform. If you check the link down in the description below, you can get 2 free months of Skillshare, and I highly encourage you to go and check them out because, like I said, they made this video possible. If you're a lover of books, we need your voice on this platform, especially if you are a queer person, so please check it out, and I would love to hear if you started your channels recently. Okay, now that I've recommended all the things, let's talk about some Ownvoices trans books, and we are going to split this recommendations video up by genre. So the first genre I'm going to talk about are contemporary novels. Considering my content in the last 6 months, it would be absolutely ridiculous if I didn't start out by talking about I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. This is an Ownvoices book with a non-binary protagonist. It's about Ben, a non-binary teen who comes out to their parents. Because of it, they are thrown out of their home. So they reconnect with their estranged sister Hannah and Hannah's husband and move in there and start the last semester of high school at a brand new school. While there, they make a ton of new friends, but the most memorable of them is a boy named Nathan who is cute and who Ben might just be falling for. This is an absolutely brilliant contemporary book. I feel like it has been the queer book of 2019, so I couldn't not talk about it. I adore Mason. I have followed them online for years. We got to hang out a little bit at BookCon and Book Expo. This book is full of so much heart and joy and love and covers a variety of different topics. It's just a brilliant piece of fiction, and I cannot wait to read whatever Mason writes next. Next up, I want to talk about an author who is going to be featured in this video a lot. That is Austin Chant, and I want to talk about his book Coffee Boy, which is a male-male romance with a trans guy as the protagonist. This book is about a guy named Kieran who gets a great internship working for a political campaign, only to develop a crush on his very straight-laced boss. I am going to be talking about Austin Chant a couple more times in this video because I absolutely love his writing. I love the worlds he creates. He writes romances that I adore, and this is just one of those great pieces of fiction. I adore it. Next, I want to talk about a YA contemporary, and that is If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo, which features a trans girl protagonist. This book is about a girl named Amanda who has just started a new school because she is sort of running from something that happened at her previous school. Namely that she was the victim of some very transphobic bullying. At this new school, Amanda is just trying to fly under the radar, and then she finds herself falling for a boy named Grant. This is a really excellent book. If I remember, I think this was the very first Ownvoices trans book I ever read. It's incredibly difficult to get through at times. It's emotional, but but it is also heartfelt and beautiful, and oh my god, we love a book that has a trans girl on the cover as well. When this book was released, I feel like we all named it an instant classic, and that hasn't changed with time. It is such a valuable piece of literature, and I cannot recommend it enough. Next, I want to talk about a novella, Long Macchiatos and Monsters by Alison Evans. This novella is about Jalen, who is genderqueer, and they spend most of their time hanging around their local coffee shop, not really wanting to go to their university classes, and obsessing over bad sci-fi movies. And then one day they meet P, a trans guy, and the two of them fall for each other fast. P is also disabled. He uses a prosthetic limb, and overall this is just a really great novella. It is sweet and quick, lovely. I read it for a Pride Month a couple of years ago and have not regretted it in the least. It's delightful. Next, I want to talk about a middle grade book called George by Alex Gino. This is another one of those books that is absolutely a classic, and the author is a trans spectrum author, though they do not share the identity of the protagonist of George. This book is about a young trans girl who more and more wants to be able to portray Charlotte in her school's production of Charlotte's Web, even though that is a role traditionally assigned to a female student and no one knows that she is a girl. Queer middle grade is incredibly important. It is so essential to get queer stories into the hands of younger kids. Whether these stories are telling young children that it's okay if they are feeling a certain way, or if it's just about teaching young children to be allies from a very early age, queer middle grade, I can't emphasize enough, is essential. And George, I feel like, was one of the very first stepping stones of queer middle grade. It is a lovely story, beautifully written, and like all of these books, I highly recommend it. The last two books on this contemporary list are both adult fiction, and the first of those is Small Beauty by Jia King Wilson Yang. This is a book about May, a trans girl who is also mixed race of Chinese descent. She is dealing with the recent loss of her cousin and the slightly more distant loss of her aunt. It's a book set in Canada and is a very small novel. Small Beauty, it's on the cover, that's very centralized on May dealing with grief, about dealing with the trans women in her life that she sort of left behind to deal with her grief, and about her discovering the fact that her aunt was queer even if her aunt never told her this while she was still alive. It's a really brilliant book that grapples very head-on with the main character's intersectional identity. It's heartbreaking and wonderful. I just barely read this book at the beginning of June, and it was such a great way to start Pride Month. So whether you read it now or whether you wait until a little bit later, I really encourage you to pick this one up because it is telling a story that is essential for so many people to hear. I'm very glad that I had the chance to read this. And the last contemporary book I'm going to talk about is Nevada by Imogen Binnie. This is a book about a trans woman who has been out for a number of years. It's about this trans woman who has been living in New York City, feeling stuck and feeling so unsure how she fits into society as a trans woman, and particularly as a trans woman who likes other women. So when she gets fired and dumped on the same day, she decides to set out on a cross-country road trip to try to figure out some of the internal things that she's been dealing with. This is one of those books that is really difficult because it is very meditative. It's not focused on plot that much at all. It is all focused on Maria trying to find her place as a trans woman, as a woman who likes other women, as a punk, as someone who just feels like she hasn't found her place. This is a really powerful, wonderful book, and I definitely encourage you to read it. Okay, next up, let's talk about some sci-fi and fantasy, and the first thing that I have to recommend is a series that is constantly recommended on my channel, and that is the series that starts with Dreadnought by April Daniels. The series overall is called Nemesis, and the second book is called Sovereign. Dreadnought is about a young trans girl named Danny who has been really forced into the closet by her abusive and very transphobic parents. And then one day the superhero Dreadnought dies at her feet and she inherits all of his powers, plus she gains a body that she's always wanted, which has the unfortunate effect of forcing her out of the closet. So she has to contend with a world in which she now fights supervillains while also dealing with transphobia and abuse at home, and transphobia even within the superhero community. Danny is also a lesbian, and book 2, Sovereign, has a female-female relationship that I adore. These are wonderful books, particularly if you enjoy superheroes, but both of them grapple with a lot of very dark topics. Whether it is Dani dealing with transphobia, especially from a trans-exclusionary radical feminist that works in the superhero community that Dani has to deal with very frequently, and it also deals with the, like, moral ramifications of becoming a superhero and occasionally causing deaths. These are really brilliant books. I highly recommend them, but please look into the trigger warnings for both of them because, like I said, they are dark, but if you love superheroes and superhero stories, I've recommended these before, and I will recommend them again and again. They are brilliant. Next, I want to talk about 2 more books by Austen Chant. The first of those is Peter Darling. This book is sort of a sequel and sort of a retelling of Peter Pan. In this reimagining, Peter has now grown up, is a man, and has returned to Neverland to find it a lot darker than he left it. And the reimagining element of this is basically that Peter has been dealing with the fact that this Peter Pan grew up as Wendy. So Peter is returning to Neverland because he has sort of officially decided that he can no longer live the life he led before, and he has to go back to this make-believe land. And this also has a male-male romance with Captain Hook, which they're both grown adults when the story takes place, so like I said, I love Austen Chant. He writes brilliant books. This is my absolute favorite of all of his books. It's fantastic. It captures a darkness in Neverland that I really miss in a lot of retellings. Like, I couldn't shut up about this book the first time I read it, and I can't shut up now because it's wonderful. The other Austen Chant book I want to recommend is Caroline's Heart. This is about a cowboy named Roy and a witch named Cecily, both of whom are trans. Roy is sort of trying to fly under the radar, and then he meets Cecily, who is very cold, very calculating, and something terrible happens to Roy, and Cecily has to make a very rapid decision to either save Roy or not save him. And that decision hinges on the fact that she has been creating a heart to revive her lost love, and if she wants to save Roy, she's going to have to give up the chance to see her love again. This is an absolutely brilliant, wonderful, fantastic book. Shockingly, since it's by Austen Chant, one of my faves. It's a very easily magical world. Cecily, as sort of what she does with her witchcraft, is she creates prosthetics in this Wild West magical world. Like, that's what she does with her magic, which is really, really wonderful. There's a great build to this relationship. There's a lot of examining grief and the people we leave behind. It's shockingly, it's fantastic. And the last fantasy book I want to recommend is The Brilliant Death by Amy Rose Capetta. This is the first book in a series, so there are going to be more of these. In fact, the second book has trans people kissing on the cover. Can we just? So this is about Theodora, who is part of one of the 5 controlling families of this Italian-inspired world. Teo has magic, which no one can know about. She has the ability to transform people into objects, which her father uses in order to keep his empire, and then someone attempts to murder her father, so Teo sets out to kill the person who did this, and along the way she meets a gender-fluid magician who teaches Teo how to also alter her body so that she can appear both male and female. So I didn't know that this book was Ownvoices for a bit, but the author identifies as a demigirl, and it's very clear to see the ways that Teo identifies as that as well. The love interest is gender fluid and swaps between he and she pronouns depending on the way they are presenting in that moment. This is just a really, really great book, and I cannot wait to read more in the series. It's a great exploration of gender and magic, and features a ruthless main character and a great romance, so I encourage you to check it out. And the last book that I'm going to recommend is a nonfiction book, and that is Real Queer America, LGBT Stories from Red States by Samantha Allen. This is a book chronicling Samantha's journey, who is a trans woman going to a bunch of different conservative states and writing about the queer communities that occupy those states. It's a road trip that she embarks on with her transgender friend Billy, and is a wonderful celebration of so many different queer identities and the tight-knit communities that we create in conservative states in America. It celebrates the victories that we have made in different states while also acknowledging the work that still desperately needs to be done. It is about the found family that you create and is just a brilliant book. One of my absolute favorites that I've read this year easily. It's such a great read, even if you are someone who doesn't traditionally gravitate towards nonfiction. It's easy to read, and yet there's just so much packed in here. I think I said when I reviewed this in March that it was a book that made me feel powerful and confident in my queerness, and as someone who, like Samantha, grew up queer in Utah, there is just a real power in that. So this is a book that engages with a lot more identities than just trans folks, but that is a very central narrative here since Samantha herself is transgender, so I definitely encourage you to give it a read. So that is the end of my personal list of recommendations, because those are all of the books that I have read, but I want to acknowledge that there are a lot of voices missing from this list. I don't have nearly as many books by transgender people of color, and I would love to read more books that examine a wider range of trans experiences, so I want to let you know about just a few books that are on my personal TBR. My personal TBR includes Ownvoices books like An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon, The Black Tides of Heaven by J.Y. Yang, Out of Salem by Hal Shrieve, Highway Bodies by Alison Evans, and Genderqueer, a memoir by Maia Kobabe. Please let me know what some of your favorite Ownvoices trans books are down in the comments below. I would love to hear about them, even if they were on this list, and especially if I haven't read them yet so I can extend my TBR. If you are an existing trans spectrum booktuber or book blogger, please share all your links in the comments below, and if you are not yet a booktuber or a book blogger, please check out the link to Skillshare in the description below. Take some classes, learn how easy it is to get started, because we desperately need your voice. Friends, I hope you have had a lovely Pride. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in another one very soon. Bye!